Question 1. The team is midway through a large construction project when a new government regulation is enacted, requiring the redesign of a ventilation system. This unforeseen regulatory change will significantly increase both cost and schedule. Which reserve should the project manager request approval to access? A. Contingency reserve, as the risk has materialized. B. Management reserve, as this is an unknown event. C. Project buffer, to absorb the schedule impact. D. Activity reserve, to address the immediate redesign task. Answer, B. Management reserve, as this is an unknown event. The management reserve is specifically set aside in the budget for unforeseen, unknown risks that were not identified during the initial risk identification process, such as mandatory, unexpected changes in government regulations. Since this risk was not registered and is impacting the project baselines, it requires tapping into the management reserve, which typically necessitates sponsor or senior management approval. Contingency reserves, conversely, are allocated for the costs of known and planned risks documented in the risk register. Always use the management reserve for genuinely unexpected, high-impact events outside the scope of planned risks. Question 2. In an Agile context, the primary purpose of the definition of done, DOTI, is to A. Specify the acceptance criteria for individual user stories. B. Serve as the formal sign-off document from the product owner. C. Define the quality and completeness standards required for the increment to be considered shippable. D. Document the total remaining technical debt in the product backlog. Answer, C. Define the quality and completeness standards required for the increment to be considered shippable. The definition of done, DOTI, is a critical quality guideline that creates a standardized, non-negotiable checklist of activities that must be completed for every piece of work before it can be called done and potentially released. This set of standards ensures quality consistency across the entire increment, covering items like testing, integration, and documentation. If a deliverable meets its individual acceptance criteria but fails the DoD, for example, missing security testing, it cannot be shipped, thus protecting the project's quality baseline. Question 3. A project manager has identified a key external stakeholder who currently supports the project but holds high influence over future regulatory changes. The project manager needs a metric to gauge this stakeholder's current sentiment. Which measure is most relevant for assessing the success of the current engagement plan? A. Communication frequency reports. B. Stakeholder satisfaction scores. C. Number of formal change requests submitted. D. Risk exposure rating related to the stakeholder. Answer, B. Stakeholder satisfaction scores. Stakeholder satisfaction scores are the most direct metric used to measure the success of a stakeholder engagement plan, particularly for high-power, low-interest stakeholders who need to be kept satisfied. Since this stakeholder holds significant influence, high power, maintaining a favorable sentiment is paramount to project success. Tracking satisfaction helps ensure the project is delivering acceptable outcomes and proactively addresses any potential shifts in attitude before they manifest as critical issues. This approach is central to the stakeholder performance domain. Question 4. Which project document provides the scope boundaries, acceptance criteria, and explicit definition of all major deliverables for a predictive project? A. Requirements Traceability Matrix, RTM. B. Work Breakdown Structure, WBS. Dictionary. C. Project Scope Statement. D. Project Charter. Answer, C. Project Scope Statement. The Project Scope Statement is the formal document that provides the detailed description of the project and product scope, including the major deliverables, exclusions, assumptions, constraints, and acceptance criteria. It serves as the primary component of the scope baseline, providing a clear boundary against which potential changes and delivery acceptance will be measured. While the project charter provides high-level objectives, the scope statement contains the detailed definition of what will be delivered. Question 5. A team recently merged from 3 different functional departments into a new cross-functional project team. Members are now openly challenging the project manager's planned technical direction and expressing frustration with resource allocations. According to the Tuckman model, the team is currently in which stage? A. Forming. B. Storming. C. Norming. D. Performing. Answer: B. Storming. The storming stage is characterized by conflict, resistance to project constraints, challenges to leadership, and disagreement over technical approaches and processes. When newly formed teams begin to express open frustration and challenge direction, they are moving past the initial politeness of the forming stage and are actively working through power dynamics and interpersonal differences. The project manager's leadership challenge is to guide the team through this conflict toward cohesion. Question 6. A project manager allocates budget funds specifically for peer reviews and continuous security vulnerability scanning during the development phase. These activities are examples of investment in which category of the cost of quality, COQ? A. Internal failure cost. B. Prevention cost. C. Appraisal cost. D. External failure cost. Answer: C. Appraisal cost. Appraisal costs are the costs associated with evaluating and inspecting the product or process to ensure it complies with requirements before handing it over to the customer. Peer reviews and security vulnerability scanning are inspection and testing activities designed to find defects after the work is created but before customer acceptance, classifying them as appraisal costs. Prevention costs, in contrast, are invested earlier to stop defects from occurring at all, for example, training or quality planning. Question 7. According to PMBOK 7, which performance domain is responsible for providing the integrated structure of functions and processes to support the project and align it with the organization's strategic direction? A. Planning performance domain. B. Governance performance domain. C. Development approach and life cycle performance domain. D. Delivery performance domain. Answer: B. Governance performance domain. The governance performance domain provides the overarching framework for project management and ensures that the project remains aligned with the organization's established standards, policies, and strategic objectives. This domain enables informed decision-making, oversight, and accountability throughout the project lifecycle, ensuring the project receives necessary support and adheres to organizational requirements. Question 8. A project manager is managing stakeholders who have high influence over project decisions but little interest in the day-to-day work. Using the power/interest grid, what is the recommended engagement strategy for this group? A. Manage closely. B. Keep satisfied. C. Keep informed. D. Monitor. Answer: B. Keep satisfied. Stakeholders possessing high power but low interest are those who can severely impact the project but do not require detailed, frequent communication. The most effective strategy is to keep satisfied by meeting their key needs and expectations, ensuring their demands are addressed, but without over-communicating operational details that might lead to unnecessary involvement or distraction. This prevents them from becoming dissatisfied and potentially disrupting the project. Question 9. In a predictive project, the project manager uses a firm fixed price, FFP, contract for the development of a specific software module. Under this contract type, who bears the majority of the risk for cost overruns? A. The buyer, as they are ultimately responsible for funding the project. B. The seller, as they must complete the work for the agreed-upon price. C. The buyer and seller share the risk equally. D. The project manager, as they oversee contract execution. Answer, B. The seller, as they must complete the work for the agreed-upon price. The firm fixed price, FFP, contract places the highest financial risk on the seller because they commit to delivering the specified scope for a set price, regardless of their actual costs. If the seller underestimates the effort or encounters unexpected technical difficulties, they must absorb the cost overrun. This contract type is generally preferred by the buyer when the scope is clearly defined. Question 10. A Scrum Master notices that the development team is often blocked by delays in obtaining necessary security clearance for deployment. According to the principles of servant leadership, what is the Scrum Master's primary responsibility in this scenario? A. Escalate the delay to the project sponsor to ensure accountability. B. Document the delay as a schedule variance and update the risk register. C. Facilitate the removal of the impediment by engaging with the security team directly. D. Coach the development team on how to prioritize security clearance tasks themselves. Answer, C. Facilitate the removal of the impediment by engaging with the security team directly. The role of the Scrum Master is one of a servant leader, focusing on supporting the team by addressing obstacles that hinder productivity. A delay caused by an external department, like security, is a classic impediment, and the Scrum Master's primary duty is to take ownership of removing this blocker, often by coordinating or negotiating with the external stakeholder. While coaching is part of the role, removing external roadblocks is a more immediate and necessary action here. Question 11. What term describes the amount of time an activity can be delayed without delaying the early start date of any immediate successor activity? A. Total float. B. Free float. C. Project buffer. D. Critical path. Answer, B. Free float. Free float is the measure of scheduling flexibility that specifically refers to how long a scheduled activity can be delayed without impacting any subsequent activity in the network path. This is valuable information for resource management, as it allows project managers to shuffle resources among tasks without jeopardizing downstream work. Total float, by contrast, refers to the maximum delay permissible before the final project end date is affected. Question 12. The project manager is finalizing the project charter, which formally authorizes the project. Who is responsible for signing the project charter and providing formal resource authorization? A. The project manager. B. The functional manager. C. The project sponsor. D. The stakeholder management board. Answer, C. The project sponsor. The project sponsor is the individual or group ultimately accountable for the project and who holds the authority to commit organizational resources and funding. Therefore, the project charter, which formally establishes the project and grants authority to the project manager, must be signed and approved by the sponsor. Question 13. During project execution, a change request to modify the project scope is approved by the Change Control Board, CCB. What is the next step the project manager must take? A. Implement the change immediately and notify the stakeholders. B. Update the project scope statement and the scope baseline. C. Update the requirements documentation and close the change request. D. Perform the work and update the cost and schedule estimates. Answer, B. Update the project scope statement and the scope baseline. Once a change request impacting a baseline is approved by the CCB, the project manager must formally integrate that change into the official project documentation. This includes updating the affected baselines, specifically the scope baseline, project scope statement, WBS, WBS dictionary, before the work is performed. This action ensures that all future performance measurement reflects the newly approved scope. Question 14. When documenting project requirements, characteristics like maintainability, usability, and reliability are recorded. These characteristics are classified as which type of requirements? A. Functional requirements. B. Business requirements. C. Stakeholder requirements. D. Non-functional requirements. Answer, D. Non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements define the quality attributes, performance criteria, or constraints under which the system must operate, rather than describing specific user functionality. Maintainability, usability, and reliability dictate how well the system performs its functions, making them critical non-functional requirements that ensure the final product is fit for use. Question 15. A project team spans 3 continents, requiring frequent updates on technical specifications and design revisions. Which communication method should the project manager prioritize to ensure team members receive the exact same detailed information instantly and have a verifiable record? A. Formal written communication, for example, email distribution lists. B. Interactive communication, for example, video conferences. C. High bandwidth informal communication. D. Synchronous pull communication, for example, shared live documents. Answer. A. Formal written communication, e.g., email distribution lists. When detailed, complex information like technical specifications must be sent instantly and consistently to a large, geographically diverse team. Formal written communication is the most effective approach. This method ensures all recipients receive identical data simultaneously and provides an immutable record for auditing or later reference, which is critical for maintaining consistency across a dispersed team. While interactive methods allow discussion, they do not guarantee immediate, identical, and recorded distribution of complex specifications in the same way. Question 16. A key characteristic of servant leadership, frequently practiced by Scrum Masters and Agile coaches, is A. Mandating project priorities and assigning detailed tasks to team members. B. Shielding the team from all external communication and decision-making responsibilities. C. Fostering a self-organizing environment and removing organizational impediments. D. Enforcing strict adherence to the critical path and resource schedules. Answer, C. Fostering a self-organizing environment and removing organizational impediments. Servant leaders prioritize the growth, well-being, and autonomy of the team members they serve. In an Agile context, this means ensuring the team has the necessary resources and environment to perform effectively, specifically by coaching them towards self-organization and diligently working to remove any obstacles or organizational impediments that block their progress. Question 17. The project team identifies an opportunity to use a newer, highly efficient cloud technology that could substantially reduce the operational costs after deployment. Which risk response strategy should the project manager apply to this positive risk? A. Exploit. B. Mitigate. C. Transfer. D. Avoid. Answer. A. Exploit. Exploit is the risk response strategy used for positive risks, opportunities, where the team seeks to ensure the opportunity definitely happens and maximizes its positive impact. Since the new technology offers substantial benefits, the project manager should take steps to exploit this opportunity, perhaps by dedicating resources to research and integrate the new technology immediately. Question 18. A control chart being used for quality monitoring shows 7 consecutive data points falling below the mean line, although all points remain within the upper and lower control limits. What does this pattern indicate? A. The process is stable and needs no correction. B. The process is out of statistical control due to a Rule of 7 violation. C. The process is trending toward failure but is not yet unstable. D. The control limits should be adjusted to reflect the observed variation. Answer, B. The process is out of statistical control due to a Rule of 7 violation. A process is considered out of statistical control when assignable cause variation is present, even if the data points remain within the control limits. The Rule of 7 states that if 7 consecutive points fall on one side of the mean, either above or below, it indicates a non-random pattern or process shift that must be investigated immediately for underlying systemic causes. Question 19. What is the key difference between the validate scope process and the control quality process? A. Validate scope uses checklists, control quality uses performance reports. B. Validate scope is concerned with stakeholder acceptance, control quality is concerned with technical correctness. C. Validate scope is performed by the team, control quality is performed by the customer. D. Validate scope ensures compliance with the project charter, control quality ensures compliance with the scope statement. Answer, B. Validate scope is concerned with stakeholder acceptance, control quality is concerned with technical correctness. Control quality is an internal process focused on verifying that deliverables meet specified technical requirements and quality standards. Technical correctness, producing verified deliverables. Validate scope is the external process where the customer or sponsor formally inspects those verified deliverables, granting official acceptance, stakeholder acceptance, and formal sign-off. Question 20. During the risk response planning phase, the project team identifies a threat with high impact but low probability. The team decides to develop a specific workaround and budget resources to handle the event only if it occurs. Which risk response strategy is being employed? A. Avoid. B. Mitigate. C. Transfer. D. Accept, passive or active. Answer, D. Accept, passive or active. Risk acceptance involves acknowledging a risk without taking immediate action to change its probability or impact, instead choosing to deal with it if and when it occurs. Since the team decided to budget resources and create a workaround, a contingency plan, that is only deployed if the risk materializes, this is specifically defined as active acceptance, which differs from passive acceptance where no plan is made. Question 21. An Agile team is focused on reducing the time between when a product feature enters the "in progress" column on the Kanban board and when it moves to "done." Which flow metric is the team working to improve? A. Lead time. B. Velocity. C. Cycle time. D. Throughput. Answer, C. Cycle time. Cycle time specifically measures the duration that work spends in the active development process, typically starting when work begins on an item, move to "in progress," and ending when it is fully completed, move to "done." By optimizing cycle time, the team improves efficiency and predictability within their immediate delivery process. Question 22. What is the key output that results from decomposing the project scope statement into smaller, manageable components? A. Requirements documentation. B. Work breakdown structure, WBS. C. Project schedule network diagram. D. Activity list. Answer, B. Work breakdown structure, WBS. The work breakdown structure, WBS, is the fundamental process output of defined scope, serving as a hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work into smaller, more manageable elements. This structure is essential because it defines the entire project scope baseline and provides the framework for estimating, executing, controlling, and measuring performance. Question 23. A project manager is planning a large IT infrastructure upgrade where the technology requirements are mostly stable, but the user interface requirements are highly uncertain and dependent on user feedback. Which planning approach should be applied to the uncertain UI component? A. Rolling wave planning, progressive elaboration. B. Critical path method, CPM. C. Parametric estimating. D. Fixed price, FP. Contracting. Answer. A. Rolling wave planning, progressive elaboration. Rolling wave planning is a form of progressive elaboration, which is the process of planning in detail only the work that will be done in the near future, while planning high-level, uncertain work further out. Since the user interface is highly uncertain, the project manager should define the requirements for the UI iteratively, elaborating those requirements only as user feedback becomes available and the work approaches. Question 24. A team member consistently misses deadlines, primarily because they are frequently pulled into side tasks by their functional manager. The project manager addresses this by negotiating a firm schedule with the functional manager and creating a shared priority list. Which conflict resolution technique is the project manager using? A. Smoothing. B. Compromising. C. Forcing. D. Collaborating. Answer, D. Collaborating. Collaborating, or problem-solving, is the preferred conflict resolution technique because it involves openly discussing the issue, the conflicting priorities, and working with the involved parties, the functional manager and team member, to find a win-win solution that addresses the underlying root cause. Negotiating a firm schedule and creating a shared priority list directly addresses the systemic scheduling conflict without simply giving in, smoothing, or splitting the difference, compromising. Question 25. What is the primary purpose of seller performance evaluation documentation, often completed during the control procurements process? A. To ensure the seller receives timely payment for completed work. B. To update the project's risk register with any new seller-related risks. C. To provide input on future procurement decisions and lessons learned for organizational process assets. D. To formally accept the deliverables provided by the seller. Answer, C. To provide input on future procurement decisions and lessons learned for organizational process assets. Seller performance evaluation documentation captures the quality and efficiency of the seller's work throughout the contract. This information is vital for the organization because it informs the selection process for future projects, e.g., whether to use that vendor again, and provides lessons learned to improve the organization's overall procurement processes, making it a valuable addition to the organizational process assets, OPAs. Question 26. The scope baseline consists of three primary components. Which item is not one of these components? A. Work breakdown structure, WBS. B. Requirements documentation. C. WBS dictionary. D. Project scope statement. Answer, B. Requirements documentation. The scope baseline is officially defined by the project scope statement, the work breakdown structure, WBS, and the WBS dictionary. While the requirements documentation is crucial and directly feeds into defining the scope, it is a key input to the defined scope process, not a formal component of the approved, triple-threat scope baseline itself. Question 27. During schedule development, the project manager finds that one resource is overallocated by 50% across 3 concurrent activities. The project is not currently on the critical path, but the resource's availability is fixed. What technique should the project manager use to resolve this allocation issue without delaying the project deadline? A. Fast tracking. B. Crashing. C. Resource leveling. D. Resource smoothing. Answer, D. Resource smoothing. Resource smoothing is a specific resource optimization technique used when a project is not on the critical path and the goal is to keep the project schedule completion date intact while using existing float, slack, to adjust resource usage. Since the project is not delaying the deadline, the manager should shift the resources work within the available total float to avoid overallocation without compressing the schedule. Resource leveling, by contrast, is used when a delay to the critical path is acceptable or unavoidable due to limited resources. Question 28. In a Scrum environment, what is the product owner's primary role during the sprint review? A. To report the team's velocity and capacity metrics to management. B. To facilitate the meeting and ensure the time box is respected. C. To formally inspect the delivered increment and accept or reject the completed work. D. To determine the feasibility of the next sprint goal with the development team. Answer, C. To formally inspect the delivered increment and accept or reject the completed work. The product owner is the ultimate decision maker regarding the product's value and scope. During the sprint review, the product owner critically inspects the done increment and confirms whether it meets the acceptance criteria, providing the final authoritative decision on acceptance before the item can be considered part of the release. Question 29. The project is 3 weeks behind schedule, and the project manager decides to authorize overtime pay to the team working on the critical path to accelerate the schedule. This technique is known as A. Fast tracking. B. Resource leveling. C. Crashing. D. Expediting. Answer, C. Crashing. Crashing is a schedule compression technique where the project manager sacrifices time for cost by adding resources, like overtime pay, which increases cost, to critical path activities to shorten their duration. Conversely, fast tracking achieves compression by performing activities in parallel that were originally sequential, often without incurring additional cost. Question 30. During risk response planning, the project team decides to change the design specifications of a highly complex module to use proven, simpler technology, thereby eliminating the potential for major system integration failures. This strategy results in a slight decrease in overall system performance. The resulting decrease in performance is an example of which type of risk? A. Residual risk. B. Secondary risk. C. Contingency risk. D. Primary risk. Answer, B. Secondary risk. A secondary risk is a new risk that arises directly as a result of implementing a primary risk response strategy. By implementing the avoidance strategy, changing the design to eliminate integration risk, the team unintentionally created a new, undesirable risk, the slight decrease in performance. Question 31. The project manager becomes aware that a key vendor is using proprietary software without the necessary commercial licenses, potentially exposing the project to legal action. What is the project manager's most ethical obligation? A. Document the finding and proceed with the vendor since the project schedule is tight. B. Immediately report the violation to senior management and procurement for legal consultation. C. Negotiate a lower contract price with the vendor in exchange for overlooking the licensing issue. D. Note the issue in the lessons learned register for administrative closure. Answer, B. Immediately report the violation to senior management and procurement for legal consultation. Project managers have an ethical responsibility to act honestly and in compliance with all relevant laws and organizational policies, ensuring the integrity of their projects. Being aware of a potential licensing violation means the project manager must immediately raise the issue to the appropriate internal parties, management and legal/procurement, to determine the necessary corrective action, adhering to the PMI Code of Ethics. Question 32. The project team includes a highly specialized engineer who must be available from a specific date due to their assignment on a parallel program. This scenario is best described as an example of which technique for acquiring resources. A. Negotiation. B. Virtual team management. C. Pre-assignment. D. Collocation. Answer, C. Pre-assignment. Pre-assignment occurs when specific individuals for the project team are already identified and allocated before the project planning phase is fully completed, often due to specialized skills, contractual obligations, or specific knowledge. This scenario highlights a constraint created by pre-assignment, as the highly specialized engineer's availability is fixed to a certain date. Question 33. Which action is primarily performed during the close project or phase process? A. Securing customer sign-off on all final deliverables. B. Transferring the project's product, service, or result to the operational group. C. Conducting the final financial performance analysis using Earned Value Management, EVM. D. Updating the risk register with the final risk analysis data. Answer, B. Transferring the project's product, service, or result to the operational group. The primary objective of the close project or phase process, which falls under the project work performance domain, is the final handoff. This involves transferring the accepted final product, service, or result to the group that will sustain it, e.g., the operations or maintenance team, along with all necessary documentation and knowledge transfer. Question 34. Following a project completion, the project manager synthesizes the documentation regarding successes, failures, and recommendations for improving efficiency in future projects. Where is this formal knowledge permanently archived? A. Enterprise Environmental Factors, EFs. B. Project Management Information System, PMIS. C. Organizational Process Assets, OPAs. D. Work Performance Reports. Answer, C. Organizational Process Assets, OPAs. Organizational Process Assets, OPAs. Serve as the organization's internal knowledge repository, which stores historical information, policies, and process documentation, including finalized lessons learned. Archiving this synthesized project knowledge in the OPAs ensures that the organization benefits from the current project's experience for all future endeavors. Question 35. After creating the work breakdown structure, WBS, the project manager reviews the lowest level components of the hierarchy. What are these smallest, manageable components of work specifically known as? A. Activities. B. Milestones. C. Work packages. D. Tasks. Answer, C. Work packages. Work packages are the components at the lowest level of the work breakdown structure, representing the smallest piece of scope that can be effectively managed, budgeted, and controlled. These packages are the foundation upon which the schedule and cost estimates are built, forming the link between the high-level scope definition and the detailed activities required for execution.